It's day 10 in a war against evil. More importantly, why are the turbulent waters flowing so strongly? Not keeping everybody afloat. It's, God forbid, not in order that we shouldn't stay afloat. As the prophet says, the turbulent waters, they cannot extinguish the love of the Jewish soul has for its Jewishness, has for its people, has for God. And the only reason why there is the turbulence is in order to bring out the greater connection, the greater bond, the greater love that there is between the Jewish people. There is between us and God Almighty. And that's exactly what's happening on the field right now. Amazing. The kinship, the bond, the brotherhood is not merely because it makes sense. It's coming from the neshama. It's coming from the soul. The unique Jewish soul that we spoke about yesterday in Tanya. That only exists individually, collectively, amongst the Jewish people. As we've seen witness to so much bonding, connection, love, and chesed, tzedakah, that is unbelievable. I could go on and on for a long time, and I know very little compared to what there's out there. But this is all an expression of the Jewish soul. And yesterday we spoke about that in Tanya. The divine soul. Compounded of the 10 divine attributes. And it expresses itself by doing a mitzvah. And today, there are so many soldiers. They're making 50,000 pairs of tzitzis because the soldiers want to do the mitzvah. They want God's protection. Soldiers, they're not even wearing a head covering. They have tattoos. But they're still a Jew with a Jewish soul. And as the turbulent waters, as the prophet says, referring and making an allusion to this week's Torah portion about Noach and Noah's flood. We're being flooded. What does the flood do? Not only it doesn't put out the fire of the soul, because water puts out fire, the fire of the soul. On the contrary, the fire of the soul becomes even stronger. A greater fire of the Jewish soul, and that brings us greater unity amongst us, and brings a greater connection to God, wanting to do more of a mitzvah. And that's what's happening, facts on the ground. We continue with this notion, with this idea. In today's teachings, God says, Zeh lo mazeh, that God created one opposite the other. In other words, whatever you have on the holy side, you have to have on the other side, called siter acher, or klipa, if you will. So there's 10 divine attributes of holiness that is imbued in the Jewish soul, that is its nature to be connected to holiness, to godliness, to each other as a result, right? God created the opposite in the nations of the world. Just like we have the Holy Land, that we spoke about also previously, that the Holy Land is unique in that it is a direct divine light that imbues it with its divine energy and life force, as opposed to the rest of the world that's called diaspora. Now, even though the Holy Land today is also in exile, like everything is in exile, so everything comes by way of klipa, but inherently it is as such. So, what is the opposite from the 10 divine attributes of holiness that are in the divine, in the Jewish soul? So they are called 10 crowns of impurity. They're like each king sits on his own throne, and 10 kings don't get along because each king wants to rule. So each quality wants to rule. So it's the opposite of unity, oneness, as it is in the Jewish soul. It's the opposite. Facts on the field. 6,000 Jewish families in the South had to get out of danger. In 45 minutes, people took them into their homes, not knowing who they're taking in. Because we're united. 2.2 million Gazans. No one wants them. No one wants them. Because each one's a king. And each one only cares about their own space. That's to the nth degree. But that's the nature of the souls of the nations. Now some have become more refined, as many of you are here, right? But this is the basic nature. And the Rabbi actually explains elsewhere that there is more of a refinement of those who are the righteous of the nations of the world. But we're speaking as a generality right now, and that generality is each man for himself. What's good for me? And this is the concept that it is written. It says, the man rules over man to his detriment. What does that mean? Evil man rules over holy man. Because this is the mystery of the exile. The exile of God's divine presence, called the Shekhinah, is today in Klipa. And it animates, the animation comes in a form of Klipa. So the empowerment now is in the negative side, and therefore evil man, meaning Klipa, the other side, the negative forces that come from God, rules over sacred man, meaning the holy side. But it's only temporary, and it's not for its benefit ultimately, because ultimately that will change. That's why right now the nations of the world dominate the Jewish people. Parenthetically, the Alter Rebbe doesn't say this, but I'm saying, even in Israel, and hopefully that exile mentality will not continue, there's also a dominance there, that we listen to what the nations tell us. Because they're dominating. That's called exile. Because that's the nature right now of the world. The nature of the world is we are in exile. We don't have the Holy Temple. We don't have Mashiach. And that means that the presence of God is in Klippa as an exile. Which, how could that be? What does that mean? How does God allow his divine presence to go into exile? Okay, that needs an elaborate explanation. But the fact is the fact. That's God's presence where it is. Right? That's the reality. So, as a result, the Klippa, the nations of the world, they receive their nurture from this life force that extends to them from the external aspect of holiness. Holiness is internal, is the inner presence of godliness, is the inner desire of what God really wants. Right? Not really what he wants is to give vitality to the nations of the world that they should dominate the Jew. Not really what he wants. Metaphorically, that's like when you give a gift to someone that you don't like, but you, because of business or whatever, you're forced to, or political reasons, you're forced to. You know, look the person in the eye, kind of throw it over your shoulder. Right? That's the metaphor. What's the concept? The concept is a contraction of the divine light. It is so contracted. It is so many numerous and intense contractions of the divine light of God that now becomes vested in the material world in a way that the nations of the world rule. You know, Jewish people are supposed to be the light unto the nations. Jewish people are, the teachings of Torah are supposed to be what guides the world. But we're in exile. So they rule. And that intense light that has been contracted comes down into this world and imbues the nations of the world, dispensing them with wealth, honor, and physical pleasures. But that's all external. What does external mean? External means it's only means to an end. But most people, that's what they look for in life. That's what their life is about, which is, by the way, proof positive of that's where their vitality comes from. What is every nation seeking for their people? And unfortunately, Israel too, in a sense, not seeking what they're really all about. A nation of Torah and mitzvahs. But what is every nation trying to do for their people? Bring them wealth, bring honor, and pleasure. Because that's what it's about. Where does that come from? That's external desire of God. It's not his real desire. Where is, right? Those things are only a means to an end, but not for the nations of the world. They're the purpose. They're the purpose. However, the Jew, that they elicit their sustenance from the supernal countenance, from the inwardness of God's desire. May God make his countenance shine upon us, each according to the level that we come from. And what, therefore, is the desire of the Jew? Not wealth, not honor, and not physical pleasure. And if it is, it's because exile has affected them that they don't recognize what it's about. It's about divine connection. It's about the mitzvah. It's about doing what God needs from us. Now, we gave this as a general, distinction, and as I mentioned previously, and the Rebbe says elsewhere, that, those are the righteous nations of the world, as many of you are here that come to learn, that they have a more deeper connection as opposed to the general principle that we spoke about over here, and therefore people can rise beyond just seeking wealth, honor, and physical pleasures, or just pleasures, self-fulfillment. The nature of the Jew is about God's fulfillment. That gives us an understanding of the distinction. With this, then, we're going to be able to continue to understand, the capacity of doing evil. Right? Comes from this concept of klipa that is embodied in general the nations of the world, and then, of course, in the individuals we will learn more about. Every individual who can choose, Jew or non-Jew, can choose from klipa, of course. But more to come on this. Wow, how powerful, how unbelievable, and especially now. What's happening in Israel? What's amazing, folks, is the unity. Any nation that has another nation that terrorizes them and they attack back, they're unified for one reason: to kill the common enemy. Because not really unified between each other, because each one seeking their own self-fulfillment and self-benefit, which is human, which is natural. That's not the nature of the Jewish people. The unity that's happening right now, it's true that the terrorists are spurred on, the Maim Rabim, the turbulent waters of the day. Absolutely correct. But what it touched was the soul of the Jew. And the unity that it's causing, it's not merely that we're going to defeat the enemy. Yes, but more importantly, we are bound with each other. And that's the sentiment. That we're bound with each other as one body. All the limbs of the body are bound with each other and are one. That's the Jewish people. Wow. Any questions or comments? Goldie. We are told that Yidden won't have another Holocaust, no matter what type of Yid you are. Precious Hashem, and other Holocausts is unfolding. First of all, we think positive. Could a Holocaust happen? Of course. Tomorrow. Of course it could. Is that the perspective and what we live with? No. We live with Chesed v'Rachamim, God's kindness and compassion. Being fully aware that it could happen. Because not Mashiach is, not fully unraveled and revealed. And yes, every Yiddish neshama will be there in for the Gula, for the redemption. Okay. Jennifer, this month Cheshvan, Mashiach is supposed to come. It is Mashiach is supposed to come. Well, yes, today supposed to come. But I don't know of any place where it says that in the month of Mar Cheshvan specifically would come. I don't know. Hamid, you wanted to be on here. So I'm not certain, Jennifer. Sorry. I don't know what the reference is. Don't know what the reference is. I had a wonderful class last night, the Parsha. Look it up on TanyaRabbi.com or Tanya Rabbi on YouTube, and a TRC also, which was wonderful. And thank you all. Amazing. Today is my grandfather, my mother, Tzalangionen, for many, should be healthy and well. Her father, my grandfather, it's his yahrzeit. 63 years ago he passed away in Israel. Avram Yitzchak ben Naphtali, the son of Naphtali. and him and my grandmother are both from Poland, but they moved to Germany. And then when Hitler, Yamach Shemai, his name be obliterated and his memory be obliterated, came to power, since they were Polish, not German, so they weren't, they saw what might be or could be, and they moved to Palestine, where my mother was born. They moved there in 33, 34. And then my mother was born. So amazing. His family in Poland, everybody got wiped out. My mother even remembers that before the war, she was a little girl, just a few years, like 4 years old when the war broke out. Probably 4 or 5, no, 4 and a half. When the war broke out, and she remembers her uncle, her father's, my grandfather's brother, coming to visit in Palestine. But the war broke out, so he went back to Poland to be with his family. He lost everybody. But God, for some reason, wanted them to survive. So they worked in Germany, not being German, so they were not, they were able to see more than what the German Jews saw. And they came to Palestine, thank God, to Israel, as we know it. And the rest is history. Today's is your time, Miss Neshama go from strength to strength. And as I mentioned yesterday, I mentioned again, this is also in honor of my first cousin, who I, probably, I was a little kid, so I probably played with him. Maybe not, because he was maybe not born yet even. He was killed in one of the kibbutzim, where the 40 children were. He was in that kibbutz, and he was killed. So probably last time I saw him was over 50 years ago, maybe 55 years ago. I don't know. No, maybe even more. Anyway, whatever it is. And yeah, very sad. May his neshama have an aliyah. Yeah, may his neshama have an aliyah. And may my nephew be protected. Alicia Ben, Lior Marlin, Alina Matitya Ben, I think Esther, and all of Israel be protected. Let us say Amen. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege, a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Thank you for joining. Rambam coming out next. A good Chodesh, a good new month, and only good stuff. Be well.